Sorry about 9:06. Bases dropped for another round of Soccer's Morning Show. Soccer down here. John here, you there. And we got a lot of World Cup stuff to talk about this morning. I wanted to initially, in hour 2 at some point, I wanted to get into the situation involving the Afghan women's team. But that has kind of gone by the wayside with the news of the morning. And that means that we might get to it a little bit. We may not. So we'll see what happens involving we'll see what happens with the stacks and see what happens there. But a lot of stuff has happened this morning from a World Cup sense. Luke Winstall's going to join us in hour number 2. And he's going to discuss Australia now that he's back on this side of the Atlantic. And we'll get into the Australia-France matchup. Great tournament for Jamaica. Jamaica loses 1-0 to Colombia in the early match. And France, no problems with Morocco. Fantastic stuff with them as well. And that was going to be part of the discussion initially involving teams like Jamaica, South Africa, Morocco, and, kind of go into a bit of a deep dive, and it would be a requested reading from our friends at the Washington Post this morning about how they have worked their way through. We've got Mbappe to talk about. We've got Neymar to talk about. We've got Vlatko to talk about if you want to talk about it. There's an article, where did Vlatko go wrong? So we can leave that up for debate and everything. So plenty to talk about this morning. And Tom, that was kind of what we were going to get into initially with the discussion involving the alleged fourth DP. We're not going to be having, conversations like this. It might be who's the fourth man now. So we'll see what. And that's the thing. And Ricky gets right to the crux of the matter. Sources. Follow your sources. Figure out what's going on. So we'll get into all of the World Cup stuff. Like I said, there's some news that has come out. Obviously, the results we'll talk about. Luke Winstall coming in hour number 2, and the opening kickoff, I'll go ahead and say it. Yeah, I'll go ahead and lay it all out. Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. Once again, don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. And Twitch and Twitter and Facebook now, because I finally figured out how to send it to multiple places at one time. So that's your QR code for those of you watching on our social media platforms. Don't forget, thanks to everybody who has used that QR code or has used the code SoccerDownHere15 when it comes to Kickoff Coffee. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, at Kickoff Coffee, take 10% and reinvest it into the youth game and youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. All right, opening kickoff this morning. If you hear through my headset noise that is not me talking or music or the show or anything like that, let me know. And I have no earthly idea what I can do about it, but I just wanted to warn you ahead of time. Here in the subdivision for Office HD, the tree cutters are here. Which trees they're cutting, I have no idea. Yesterday, when I was out wandering and getting in my miles, our HOA, our homeowners association, had already blocked off a couple of parking spaces for the tree cutters so they could park and they could do their tree cutting first thing in the morning, and that's what they're doing this morning. So they showed up, and at 8 o'clock sharp, they started with the chainsaws. And I mean, they are hitting the chainsaws hard, and it is on that side of the office, and it is on that side of the office. And so that's why when I, when I asked if you're going to be hearing things, let me know if you're hearing things, because that's chainsaws attacking trees. My question for you this morning: when there are workers who are doing the work that they do, I understand the conditions being what they are, where it's 427 degrees outside and you want to try to get things done early. I get that. But in your mind collectively, when is a good time to start these kinds of things? I mean, I know that, since we have kids that are back in school, you hear the school buses at 7 o'clock in the morning, bad brakes and all. You know it's a school bus coming. You know it's a yellow hound, because when they hit the brakes, you hear those brakes. It is almost a rite of passage for the calendar that you hear the brakes of the school bus in your neighborhood at an incredibly early hour. I know that. I get that. That to me, it's like, okay, well, if you weren't awake and you didn't hit your alarm, then you're going to hear the school buses. That is just rite of passage. First week of school, when school's in session, because the bus's brakes are squeaky, and I'm using that word just because that's the first word that popped into my head. But when it comes to work in your subdivision or in your area, like your neighbor says, hey, I need to have something done, do they consult with you and sit there and say, okay, well, they're going to be here at this time. Hey, here's the deal. When's a good start time for these kinds of things? Because I can hear the chainsaws through my headset. Not through the microphone yet, but I can hear them through my headset. When is a good time to take into account your neighbors, everyone around you, and still trying to get the work done? When is a good time? Just asking. Because for me, maybe wait a little later than 8 o'clock. I mean, school buses I get, but, we're staring at it right now. Bam is not a fan of HOAs. He says it's his house. I should be able to do what I want to it, plant what I want, paint how I want to paint. Michael Head, who probably can hear those chainsaws if he is at home because of his relationship geographically to Office HD, he probably can hear the chainsaws if he's at home, if he's not working. So Michael's saying 8 o'clock is acceptable. Bam is saying 7 o'clock is acceptable Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday. KFC, wait, sun up, game on? Wait a minute. So here in the summer, when it's like 6:30 in the morning, you're ready to rock and roll it. You're ready to have them doing their thing at like sun up. What about those of us that kind of, want to sleep in a little bit? Just saying. Sun up, KFC, man. Ricky, 8 a.m. during the week, 9 a.m. during the weekends. Emilio's digging 8 o'clock in the morning. Hutch says, we've gone into HOAs down here now, apparently. Hutch says, I'll never live in another development that has an HOA ever. And so Emilio's kind of agreeing with Ricky, 8 during the week, 9 on the weekends. Flip side of the argument, according to Tom, you have access to the rules of the HOA before you move in. You don't like them, don't move in. There you go. Ricky's not a fan of his HOA, but acknowledges that Tom is correct, or become president of the HOA quickly. That is true. That is absolutely true. KFC, I'm not ready for anything, but when I work outside, rather work early when it's hot Still just like getting woken up by it. Right there with you. Because I know that we've got to, we got to get ready for the show. And I admit that I do, when I get up in the morning, I go through and I read all the papers just to see if there's anything that I missed, all those kinds of things. But, it's like, I want my noise early in the morning. I don't want like noise I can't control, I guess is kind of what I'm getting at. Hutch, Sundays, go as soon as the first church bell sounds. Fight back. Emilio, and when a house looks like ish, then you want the HOA. Not all HOAs have the same rules. And Emilio says that they were made leniently. Tom, it's not the concept of the HOA that's bad. Generally, they're for the good of the neighborhood. It's when you get power hungry dudes in charge when it all goes to hell. That's true. That's definitely true. And we are currently fighting a water issue in the street outside of Office HD. That's a part of this also. Michael likes living in an HOA community, purple polka dotted houses. David's got 3 kids. 7 a.m. works for him, but he understands 8:30 is reasonable for the general population. Kefsey, there's never an okay time for a leaf blower. That is true. And is that a leaf blower? I think they've transitioned. They might be trying to clean up some of the what's going on after they've taken issue with the trees. But actually, no, I think they've still stuck with chainsaws. Yeah, Michael, or lawns that look like ish. And in Michael's subdivision, for the record, everybody's lawn looks the same. I swear to God, it's the same Bermuda grass, same length. Everybody's got it. Emilio was on an HOA for 7 years. Don't call me when the street light ain't working. And then he followed it with another word. Okay, so Michael does hear the leaf blowers. Okay, so they are leaf blowers, and I guess they've transitioned for this moment from chainsaws to leaf blowers. Hutch, they got the goats going in Brook Run Park now. Maybe we need more goats. Well, it depends on the size. I would say goats would be dependent upon the size of the grass. It would be dependent upon the size of the grass. But yeah, Michael, full disclosure for those of you that may not know, Michael lives about, a good 5 iron from Office HD in an entirely different subdivision. But there is the back walkway path that connects our 2 subdivisions. And so Michael's a good 5 iron away from Office HD. So he can hear pretty much anything that's going on. Doesn't affect him, but he can still hear it. And that's why I was asking the question too, because it's like, it doesn't affect you, but it's loud. Those kinds of things. Morning forecard. Ricky says the lawns look like ish because the company builder tried to cut the whole neighborhood while it was being built still here, and they still do a poor job. Bam is true. Goats are great for hilly areas you really can't mow. So, but no, that was this morning. That was why I wanted to. And Ricky is posting in the Twitch pitch, folks, that you do not need to hire from his perspective when it comes to landscaping. But yeah, I mean, we got an early wake up call with the chainsaws, the leaf blowers, the big mulchers that they have in the back behind the big truck, where you sit there and you throw the branch into the mulcher and it goes right into the back of the truck after it's been mulched, those kinds of things. So I just wanted to ask. I wanted to know if I was being an old fuddy-duddy and really did not like to hear leaf blowers, chainsaws, mulchers at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Like I said, that was just me. So that's topic number 1 this morning. That's opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code once again for those of you watching on Twitch. Thanks to everybody who has invested in Kickoff Coffee. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. They in turn take 15% off your purchase. They in turn take 10% reinvested into youth initiatives and very cool stuff on the youth side. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Tom, still always fascinates me when you see these huge social media threads about some old veteran who was told to take down his flags when the HOA rules specifically prohibit flags. Everybody's on the side of the veteran, like, look what they're doing to this wonderful patriot. Tom says, hell, I'm a veteran myself, but rules are rules. Yeah, and 4-card noise ordinances. Yeah, I mean, that might be part of it too, but I think it probably is like jet engine and consistent for like 90 minutes and people complaining and all that kind of stuff. And maybe there are times kind of like rock concerts where you can't start something before a certain time and you've got to end it by like 11:30. I don't know. That's like I said, that is above my pay grade when it comes to stuff going on here in the subdivision at Office HD. But no, it's just literally when I got up this morning, first thing I heard was school buses A and the jostling of the folks that are chopping down the trees here in the subdivision. So that was why it was just something that triggered in my head. And I'm like, I've got to ask this. So there you go. That's your opening kickoff this morning. We've got some things, and like I said, we'll probably talk about it in hour number 1 and in hour number 2 involving teams that have been knocked out of the World Cup. This morning, we've had a couple of results, and it was another tight one, and great work by the Jamaican national team. They lose 1-0 to Colombia in the round of 16. And hopefully we'll be able to catch up with Soleil Washington once she makes her way back to the mainland. And France was up 3-0 at the break. They beat Morocco by the final of 4-0. And Morocco, I think, was a plus 1,600 to win going in, according to our Juice Box buddies. So France, Australia, right-hand side of the bracket. So we'll keep an eye on that. And like I said, that's why we're going to have Luke Winslow coming on in hour number 2 to discuss what he's seen from the Matildas, talk about his travel, talk about his trip, but all of his observations from the world competition that is currently going on in Australia and New Zealand. And we will catch up with him about all of his shopping and shipping and all those kinds of things. But those are the 2 results this morning. And it lends itself to a conversation that needs to be had on a bunch of different levels. And after, as those matches were going this morning, FIFPro, that's they are the global union for professional football players. 65,000 players, 66 national associations. Before we came on the air this morning, the Nigeria women's national team has had enough. And yes, we are efforting Brooke Evans through Luke Winslow. And apparently Brooke is in New Zealand. So it might end up being a 1v1 where we catch up with Brooke later today about this. So this came out an hour before, an hour ago. So like 40 minutes before the show started this morning. From FIFPro, their own selves. Following the Nigeria women's football team's elimination from the FIFA Women's World Cup, FIFPro can confirm it is assisting players in a disagreement with the Nigeria Football Federation concerning bonus payments, camp allowances, and expenses, some of which date back to 2021. During the World Cup, the players expressed the desire to remain focused on their performance without making public statements or facing other distractions. However, the Super Falcons believe it is now time for the Nigeria Football Federation to honor their commitments and pay the outstanding amounts. The team is extremely frustrated that they have had to pursue the Nigeria Football Federation for these payments before and during the tournament and may have to continue doing so afterwards. It is regrettable that players needed to challenge their own federation at such an important time in their careers. FIFPro will continue to work with the players to ensure their contractual rights are honored and the outstanding payments are settled. And this is why we wanted to get Brooke Evans into the discussion. And bam, we will discuss this. But, and 4-card, we are going to get into Leagues Cup with the H-Town meltdown, no question. But Luke, it was only supposed to be, because of this program, it was only supposed to be through the group stage. But fantastic learning experience from our friends at the University of Georgia. But it had been disclosed that I think it was by Randy Waldrum, actually, the head coach of the Nigerian women's national team, that he hadn't been paid in like 14 months. And they had the Football Federation, they ended up paying him half. So he's only now in arrears 7 months of pay. 40th in the world, beat the hosts Australia, finishing top of the group, knocking out Canada. Before the tournament, obviously, and this is coming from our friends at The Athletic and Jacob Whitehead. Asked how Nigeria could compete with better funded nations, Waldron called for further support from the Fed. Quote, "The only way I can answer is to give the credit to the players. It's something inside them and their DNA to compete and overcome obstacles because that's what they've done throughout their careers. It's a challenge, a real challenge. We know what the top teams have, and we aspire to have them. But in the moment, we are where we are, so it's about maximizing each individual talent. I just credit the players so much for the effort they put in at this World Cup. You can see the talent is there. I think Nigeria can become a world power and invest in women's football like so many other nations seem to be doing." Remember, this is the first tourney where 3 African teams have made it to the knockouts: Nigeria, South Africa, Morocco. Waldron argued that it demonstrates what investment can do. If you saw the National Training Center in Morocco, you can see that investment is really starting to pay off. South Africa have really upped their investment, though we all feel like we need more. Maybe people outside of Africa are shocked, but those in Africa really aren't. The teams who are the so-called underdogs are coming in more tactically prepared than the big teams. Maybe some teams have underestimated that and all of a sudden found out it wasn't as easy as they thought it would be. Hopefully, it's what they're saying to us is more federations are investing in women's football. We still need to do more. Now, here was, after Nigeria loses 4-2 in penalties to England, our friends at The Guardian were doing their post-match. Ifeoma Onumonu has said Nigeria's players have to fight for something bigger after their loss in penalties. Dominated large spells of the match, lost 4-2 on penalties after a goalless 120. Onumonu said she was incredibly proud of the team's efforts, took the opportunity to highlight the difference in support. "I've seen what England have access to." Onumonu plays for Gotham FC, by the way, in the NWSL. "In Nigeria, we don't have access to much. Our training fields aren't great. Where we sleep isn't great. Sometimes we share beds. It's not good enough. In terms of recovery, we don't have much of any of that. We don't have access to a gym in camp in Nigeria. There's a lot that needs to be done. Hopefully more people start to talk about it. Coming here, it's hard to adjust. We do what we can because we love playing for our country, but hopefully they make it easier for us to do our best." Nigeria threatened to boycott initially. Remember, before the tournament started, Waldron told the On the Whistle podcast, "What keeps me going are the players. Otherwise, I would have quit this job long ago. Up until about 3 weeks ago, I'd been owed about 14 months' salary. Then they paid 7 months. We still have players that haven't been paid since 2 years ago when we played the summer series in the USA. It's a travesty." And then that was when the communications director for the NFF, Ademola Olajire, called Waldron a blabbermouth and the worst Super Falcons coach in history. Olajire said, "Everyone knows FIFA pays preparation money for every team going to the World Cup." And I think, bam, this is what you were getting to. The team traveled to Japan to play matches, traveled to Mexico for a tournament, traveled to Turkey to play matches. Onumonu said back home, the pitches aren't great. Grass is rocky, bumps everywhere. Stadium we play on for qualifying, you'd be surprised. I was surprised. You don't even know where the ball's going to jump at you. Our U20s went far in their World Cup, and when they were sent home, they were sleeping in airports for 24 hours. That's not acceptable. What we have to fight for is bigger than us. Onumonu did mention the African squads themselves were on the rise, meaning African footballers. And it's growing. A lot of people don't watch as much as they do Europe, and so underestimate who we are and what we're capable of. No one believed in us, and now a lot of people are. Other teams are catching up and growing, including us. There's no longer going to be that one team that you're absolutely going to say that they're going to win. Every game will become a battle. Every game has become important. As women start to play more internationals and at clubs, more and more teams are going to catch up. There's a shift, a lot more coming. So that's just a microcosm of what Nigeria is going through right now. When Ifeoma Onumonu says that they're sharing beds at times when they're in camp. Sharing beds when they're in camp. Randy Waldrum calls for further investment. And the Nigeria women's team, they basically have said, we've had it. Quoting the cartoon legend Popeye, they've had all they can stands, they can't stands no more. And you hope that FIFA Pro / FIFA / whomever decides that they can, fix the posterocranial inversion that is currently going on and finally get the investment. And I mean, what's owed to them in back wages? So it's a disappointing situation. It's not the only one. Like I said, remember, we've got Jamaica, we've got South Africa, we've got Morocco, we've got all of these things going on. The Washington Post article by Graham Cornwell discusses what's going on. And this might be part of the initial round of required reading for the day. David, Carly Lloyd, probably. If they want to win, if you want to see fight, you can't let them have any of that stuff. Yeah. Kefsey, even if the coach was the worst and the common beef, I believe Onumonu 10,000%. Ricky, you can only call someone a blabbermouth when they rightfully call you out. And like I said, we are efforting Brooke Evans for it probably is going to end up being a 1v1, considering that they are 16 hours ahead, and she's currently in New Zealand. So it might end up having to be a 1v1. Brooke, remember, is a part of that group that Luke was with at the University of Georgia, and she was assigned to Nigeria. So we'll see if with her time that continues there, she's getting any kind of a vibe about what's going on. It is, let's see, if my math is right, it is currently 1:30 tomorrow morning in Australia. So see if we can track down Brooke Evans to kind of get the feel for what's going on with the Nigerian women's national team. But they've had it, rightfully so. They've absolutely had it. And, with everything that they have gone through, you hope that FIFA Pro and / FIFA can aid in this situation. But you always wonder. Thank you, Bam. 1:30 in the morning. So I wasn't too far off. 1:30, 1:34 in the morning as we're talking. Bam's at 11:30 at night. But when we talk about what's going on with Nigeria, with Jamaica, with South Africa, with Morocco, and they continue to persevere, we all love those kinds of stories because of the what they do despite all of the noise that's going on around them. But the fact that we continue to have these stories and continue to have these problems addresses the larger issue. There still is a lot that has to be fixed. Morocco's investing. You see what's happening. You'd like to think that the federations that are not treating their staffs and their players as they should would see the cause and effect relationship here. You invest in yourself, you see the results. But there are still elements of individuals who will sit there and go, oh, well, they did this, whatever this level of accomplishment is. They did this, and we only needed to invest X. So instead of wanting to invest more and perhaps increase the levels of success that you're having, there will always be those individuals who will sit there and say, okay, well, they've done okay with what we've invested and not paid them for the love of the game, all those kinds of cliches. So we don't need to. And it's that kind of short-sighted thinking that will keep the game, regardless of the level, regardless of who we're talking about. You will always have those individuals who will sit there and say, well, they did okay with what we gave them. So let's just we'll keep it at that level. And we don't have to invest as much as everybody else because of the levels of success that we're having and investing X. Instead of looking at it, well, gee, what could happen if we invested X plus whatever variable you want? It's like, no, we're cool. And that's the disappointing part in having to continue to expose stories like Jamaica, like Nigeria. You have these levels of investment that need to increase to continue to grow the game across the planet, and you still have individuals who don't want to do it. They see their players, their national team players, those that are eligible for that, they see them go abroad. I mean, one of the star players for Nigeria, whose grandfather was born in Nigeria, went to USC. Plumtree went to USC, plays at Leicester City. She's a part of the national team. So, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, we're cool. But we have to be vigilant. Much like other things that we talk about on this show where we have to be vigilant, we have to continue to keep our eye on situations like Jamaica, situations like Nigeria, and go, all right, there's still stuff that needs to be fixed. There's still stuff that needs to be addressed. So I guess this was the call to remain vigilant toward the growth of the game this morning, seeing things about what's going on in Nigeria where the players have basically said, we've had it. And good on you. But what I absolutely wonder is this. When you have a coach like Randy Waldrum, who can take this group and be a front man for this group, because as we've said, Randy Waldrum credits the players a great deal. It would not surprise me, sadly, if he was dismissed. And Bam, like I said, this morning I was discussing the Afghan women's national team. Bam brings up biggest thing that needs to be addressed is the Afghan women's team are still playing in his hometown of Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. 2 years now. Yep. And there's some great stories that have gone on. I literally, no lie, I have 6 separate tabs open. I was ready to discuss the Afghan women's national team this morning in great depth in hour number 2. But because of everything that's gone on, especially with Nigeria, story's not going away, but it still needs to be talked about. The Afghan women's national team. So Bam put a bookmark in the Afghan women's national team discussion because we will get into it. Because once again, it's another story that needs to be talked about. Haley Carter, the vice president and general manager of the Orlando Pride in the NWSL, former coach of the Afghan women's national team. And she is now overseas in Australia, New Zealand. She posted to her social media the other day that she is there now getting to watch some of her players in both NWSL form. And I'm hoping that she gets to catch up with some of her Afghan women's national team. I'll keep an eye on her social media. And I will effort Haley Carter to discuss growth in the NWSL, growth in the world game, and specifically the Afghan women's national team. So that is my bookmark to me. So bam, bookmark the Afghan women's national team. But the biggest thing is that when we keep having these discussions, we need to be having them less and less. But what concerns me is that when you've got a blabbermouth as a head coach, you have this level of success with Nigeria, taking England to penalties. Oh, yeah, we were great. But when you got a blabbermouth as a head coach, we think here's what I think is going to happen with Randy Waldrum, disappointingly. So you know that this is not going to be a good sentence or a good paragraph or two to have here. Because Randy Waldrum is the worst coach that they have ever had and is a blabbermouth, the worst Super Falcons coach in history. So if the worst coach in Super Falcons history took his team to penalties before losing to England, if someone like Ademola Olajire says what he says, I think, disappointingly, and like I said, I'm looking at this as the most short-sighted thing that could possibly happen. Randy Waldrum probably will be out of a job. Because you can't have folks speaking up about what's wrong and what needs to be fixed. I wonder what's going to be next for a lot of the players. I wonder what that roster is going to look like next international competition. Because when people in positions of power feel threatened about their place, they're going to recoil and things don't go well. I think Randy Waldrum is sadly going to be out of work, at least on the international stage. And I would guarantee you that much like Kevin Brown currently with the Baltimore Orioles, who is under suspension for speaking truth in a television opener when discussing the Baltimore Orioles. Randy Waldrum speaks truth about what's going on with Nigeria, and he's still 7 months in arrears when it comes to getting paid, and some players haven't been paid since 2 years ago. You can't have folks speaking up. You can't have folks challenging authority. I think Randy Waldrum, sadly, is going to be out of work. And it's going to be something, the phraseology is going to be something along the lines of, well, we just wanted to take the team. We want to take the team in a different direction. Something nebulous like that. And I sadly, you see what's going on with Nigeria. And then there you go. So, yep. Disappointingly, I think that Randy Waldrum's out of work. And I hope that that's not the case. But sadly, I think it's going to be. Just because when people in positions of authority are sitting there and they're like, bro's mouthing off a bit too much. So you get rid of him. Oh, Rich, sorry. Rich, we are yelling about Nigeria at the moment and how the Nigerian players have gone to FIFPro, and FIFPro is like, yep, we're going to help the Nigerian players out. Nigerian players have basically had enough about how they've been treated. So that's where we are. All right, so that's your rant for the morning. And like I said, guys, whatever is on your mind, as always, Tuesday Thoughts are there. Leagues Cup. We'll get into Luke Winstall is going to be joining us, so we'll get back into the conversation about Australia and things in hour number 2. But Leagues Cup last night, I know that a lot of folks were doing the tag about when playing out of the back goes wrong or whatever it is. Houston had a 1-0 lead on Charlotte. Then they didn't. And now Charlotte's advancing, and they get to play Lionel Messi. Down 1-0 to up 2-1. And so Charlotte scores 2 goals basically in a minute, and they win. We'll go over juice boxes. There's a lot of games tonight. Rich's match with Red Bulls was supposed to be last night, but the weather was nasty all up and down the eastern seaboard. So it has been pushed to tonight with Union and Red Bulls at Subaru Park. 3 matches kicking off at 8 o'clock. Club America in Nashville is at Geodis. We'll see if we can track down Lucas Panzica and catch up with him tomorrow, regardless of the result. Rich's Philadelphia and New York. Then Toluca, Minnesota at Allianz tonight at 8 o'clock. That is your season pass FS1 Unimas match. Tigres and Monterrey at Shell Energy. That one's going to be a knockdown drag-out. That's at 10 o'clock on FS1. That's the nightcap. And LAFC hosting RSL at BMO. That's at 10:30. That one's on season pass. But the other match last night, Querétaro and New England Revolution. Querétaro scores. It was goalless at the break. They scored in the 46th. Bayrak Terovic scores in the 78th. And then in the shootout, Tapia comes up big for Querétaro. Saves in the 4th and the 5th frame. The 5th frame on Ian Harks. And Querétaro advances. So big work out of Querétaro last night, going on the road to Gillette to beat New England Revolution. And so that sets up the 5 matches tonight that gets us ready for the activity on Friday. Charlotte goes to Drive Pink to take on Inter Messi. Saturday, Querétaro, we're waiting to see what's going on there and find out what it's going to look like as we continue to roll through and see what's going on. In the knockouts, for those that don't have your handy knockout bracket available, it is LAFC, RSL, Tigres, Monterrey. Those winners square off. That's upper left. That's in your quarterfinals. Low left, Toluca, Loons, Club America, Nashville. That's low left. Low right, we mentioned the Miami-Charlotte match. And then Querétaro gets the winner of Philadelphia and Red Bulls. Well, all right. Well, hang on. So Kev C is saying underdogs keep winning. Then the Philly will win. So, all right. So let's test that. Go straight to the juice boxes then. And see what the juice boxes have to say about tonight. I guess we're doing this ahead of time. Club America favored against Nashville at a plus 129. Nashville is a plus 190 underdog at home. Union are favored. Union are favored at home against Red Bulls at a plus 127. Red Bulls are a plus 210. Toluca is an underdog at Minnesota United. Pookie Powers at a plus 120. Toluca's a plus 190. Minnesota United's down to a plus 118, just as we're talking about it. Tigres and Monterrey. Tigres is favored at a plus 148. Monterrey's a plus 184. LAFC, a big favorite. They're the only minus on the board tonight, hosting RSL at a minus 154. RSL, the win's a plus 340. Your draw's a plus 320 in 90 minutes. I mean, you're looking at Club America, Toluca. Tigres and LAFC in the quarterfinals, possibly in the left-hand side. That would be strong. And as Rich reminds us, Querétaro and Philadelphia Union would be a rematch from the group stage. And keep an eye on that. Miami and Charlotte. So you could have, if the path is open for Miami, Philadelphia beats Querétaro. Miami and Philly would be an interesting contrast in styles. Jen Hildreth will be joining us on the show tomorrow. And we'll get to discuss what it was like for Jen to be a part of calling the group stage. And so now, as I'm trying to multitask with Jen, and we'll see what's going on with Jen Hildreth. And so, like I said, Jen Hildreth will be joining us tomorrow. Looking forward to it. And, you look at the left-hand side, Tigres and LAFC. That one's really got some spice attached to it. Really looking forward to that one. So, all right. So 10 minutes, Luke Winstall set to join us. Hopefully he is driving in a safe manner to get through things. But Philly, Union, Miami semifinal in Philly. Yeah. None of us would be surprised. Forecard says, though, that the fix is in for Messi. So we'll see what's up there with all of that. But that right-hand side, Messi, if he gets past Charlotte, Jessica Charman getting to call a match along with Willie P against Lionel Messi. Winner of that one takes on the winner of Querétaro, Philly, Red Bulls. Right-hand side of the bracket. It's going to be interesting. Very interesting. But LAFC and Tigres, possible quarterfinal, left-hand side. We'll look at that. I know that you guys had you wanted to kind of get into the note that was sent. And once again, we talk about Twitter, and we'll probably end up talking about this more in hour number 2. But the idea of the Twitter account that had however many followers, was it 600? Discussing what was going on with the idea of the fourth DP. Once again, check your sources, check your sources, check your sources. Ricky said that the individual only had 600 followers, and that they were looking to also boost the cap to 2027 numbers by next year. So I'm trying to think if this was the one that I was chasing after. But, yeah, it was. Okay. It was from and then Will Forbes over at MLS Moves, 17,000 followers. But once again, he came to the table, but with that information from the account that had only 600 followers, salary budget. This was what it was supposed. Your salary budget, GAM, discretionary, and available roster spend. 2021 salary budget was under $5 million. This year it was over $5 million, and they only changed $300,000 in a salary budget in 2 years. Between now and 2027, salary budgets were supposed to increase by almost $2 million to just over $7 million by 2027. GAM was basically going to double, 1.9 to 3.9. Discretionary TAM was going to decrease, and your available roster spend was going to go from 9.8 to $13 million by 2027. But the information that was being sent out by that particular account that didn't have a whole lot of followers attached to it, dealing with the fourth DP, you're to the point now where you're staring at something that should be done. You need to get that fourth DP. You need to get the fourth DP. Your cap needs to be a lot larger. And you've got to have a floor. You've got to have a floor. But, frankly, look, and, if you ask Jared about this, we'd probably give you the same answer. Look, with all of the talk, and like I said, it is sourcing, it is followers, but it is a dog whistle. Absolutely a dog whistle. When you start hearing the discussions about, Don Garber talking about Kylian Mbappe. I mean, what is Don Garber going to say? No, we don't want Kylian Mbappe to play in Major League Soccer. You want that kind of a talent. You want to attract that kind of a talent, even if it might be for a year. You want that kind of talent, that kind of generational talent. And Emilio, you're not wrong. We'll get into the Miami-Philadelphia discussion in a bit. As we go, everybody's already looking at Miami and Philly. Discounting Red Bulls completely, it's going to be Miami beating Charlotte and Philly beating Querétaro. Your final four on the right-hand side is going to be Philly and Miami, and everybody's already plotting it. But when you've got discussions about players like Mbappe and Don Garber says what he's supposed to say, it's a reminder that you've got to fix your DP situation. It is a reminder that you've got to fix your AM. It is a reminder you've got to fix your cap. It is a reminder that you've got to fix your operating revenue. It is a reminder that you have owners who are going to want to spend. Let them spend. Let them spend. Because if there are owners that don't, Hutch, maybe there should be a retired international star slot for each MLS team going forward. Let these guys spend. Because at the same time, you're going to have teams that are going to want to build up from the inside. FC Dallas is going to want to continue to work their way up through the academy. And Michael, exactly. More salary transparency. You need to have more salary transparency. So your fans can sit there and say, my team has this to work with. My team's got this to work with. My team's got this to play with. This is what we want to do. This is what you got to do. Parzival says that Parzival says he's been saying it for months. West is going to want their rock star, and Mbappe may be it. John Thorrington on line one, because it can't quite be the LAG at the moment. But, Mbappe, Chiellini, LAFC. Hey, John Thorrington figured out how to massage the cap when he brought in Gareth Bale, and we saw what Gareth Bale and Chiellini did. So John Thorrington would find a way to massage the cap, and it would turn into an NIL deal. Name, image, and likeness, much like we're seeing with Lionel Messi. And I bet you Thorrington would do it too. Sign Vela to one more year. Make sure Denny Buwanga's locked in place. Thorrington would have his NIL deal along the same lines that we saw with Lionel Messi. Gear, Apple, sponsors. That 1 year with LAFC, then he goes to Real Madrid. But you know that John Thorrington would do everything is in his power to make sure that he wants to stay after a year. Yeah, Rich, apparently, allegedly, possibly, probably, yes, that Bale is retired. Imagine the disappointment of thinking you're going to the Galacticos and you drop into the Galaxy. That's what I said. I don't think the Galaxy, the thing about the Galaxy, though, is that they would only, Mbappe's not a free agent, so it couldn't even be the Galaxy. You could deal with free agents. Remember, you can deal with free agents for about another 5 weeks. Mbappe is not a free agent. He's under contract at PSG. So the Galaxy couldn't do anything. It would have to be LAFC and John Thorrington that would do it. If you move him to Los Angeles, you get that NIL deal, Mbappe goes to LAFC. And then now there's talk that Neymar doesn't want to do anything with PSG anymore. Chelsea on line one, by the way. Bet you $1. I don't have it here in front of me. Yes, Kefsey. Not going to the Rapids. Stan Kroenke wouldn't want to pay him anyway. He's saving his money for Arsenal and everything else over there. And Nikola Jokic. Making sure his Nuggets keep the title and that Arsenal gets all their resources. Ricky, all these one-year loans feel like timeshare vacations. And I mean, it might be. Hey, Killian, you want to hang out in L.A. remember, wasn't there an LAFC game? Wasn't it a deep playoff? Wasn't it a deep playoff game last year where Kylian Mbappe was at LAFC? He was at an LAFC game. I can't remember which one it is. Oh, but that's the thing. Rich says he's not coming to Philly either. Cheap dudes. But you're also building through your academy. And you bring in the strategic purchase, like a Gazdag. You do things your way. Red Bulls do things their way. They have a specific kind of player to fit their system. Union, FCD, you want to build through your academies and make your strategic pickups. And if you sell on, then you reinvest, hopefully for the first time ever, like we saw with FC Dallas bringing in a guy like Alan Velasco after selling Ricardo Pepi. Different teams are going to do things different ways. John Thorrington and LAFC, bam, they're going to want to go right up to the edge, figure out how to do things in a salary cap way. And if they can bring in Mbappe on a timeshare, they'll do it. Because what does that mean? They're chasing after another star with one of the world's great talents for a year. Rent them and go. Michael, you're not alone, by the way. Michael Head wants PSG to implode so badly. You're not alone in that assessment. Now, Four-Card, you can do free agents. You can do free agents for another 5 weeks in Major League Soccer. The transfer window is closed, but you can still bring in free agents. Rich says there's fans there asking, where's the Messi-like star? You've done pretty well with how you've negotiated things, building through your academy and all of that. Yeah, and you can sign pre-contracts too. And that's the thing. Mbappe is not a free agent. It would have to be a loan or a transfer. Yeah, for Mbappe to come to Major League Soccer, it would have to be a loan or a transfer for Major League Soccer. Yeah, and the thing is that right now PSG is saying that they're going to do something in a legal sense. If there has been discussions that there's been already like a handshake, hush hush kind of a deal with Mbappe and Real Madrid already while he's still under contract. So there you go. Yeah, build internally and buy big, and that's what you're seeing in various places. And you can do both, like we've seen in Atlanta. Pity Martinez heading back to River Plate, by the way. That was announced yesterday. But it's all there to negotiate. Your approach, how you want to do things. Do you want to bring in the big player? Do you want to bring in the hyper big player? All of these different ways to go about being successful. And if you take the shackles off, and you dispose of the Garber bucks, and you dispose of the AM, you dispose of the DP rule, or if you maybe jack it up to 4 DPs or whatever, you will always have owners that want to invest. Miami's the most recent example of that, obviously. But we've seen it in LAFC. We've seen it in various other places. You see owners that want to invest. Arthur Blank wants to invest. But if there are owners that do not want to invest, they can either build through academies and do it that way, which is perfectly fine, or guarantee you, much like we've seen with the expansion team in San Diego, they are the ones that can come in, knock on the door, and say, hey, dude, look, if you don't want to do this anymore, we'll take this off your hands. We'll take it off your hands. So that's something else to keep an eye on. Tom, as important as changing the cap as roster expansion is just as critical with the amount of matches the league is now foisting upon teams. Right now, rosters are at 30. I will take what you're saying, Tom, and I will send it in this direction. What you have to have, I think 30 is cool, but I think what you have to have are the roster restrictions taken away, especially from your first team and your second team. You know how, like in the NBA, you have the 7-day contract and the 14-day contract, and you can do that? I think what you've got to have, and I think Frank DeBoer talked about this when he was head coach, you've got to be able to maneuver a lot better than you currently can with teams that, if you've got a team in MLS Next Pro or wherever your secondary franchise is, wherever your second team is, you've got to be able to navigate that easier. If you want to call somebody up, you ought to be able to call somebody up. I mean, you got a 30-man roster. If you want to call up Nick Firmino and Luke Brennan for a match in schedule compression and not have to worry about, okay, I can only call them up a certain number of times during the season for an emergency call-up, I think the emergency call-up rule has to be amended to where you can sit there and go, you know, here's the deal with that. You can't restrict player movement, Tom, and I think that's the larger point here. I mean, you're absolutely correct in the ideas of roster expansion. I would call it roster availability. Because if you got 30 guys under contract and you have an injury or something to a key backup, somebody that you would call and give, hey, I need 30 minutes out of you under a normal situation. Roster availability, I think, is the problem here. I think you've got to make sure that you can sit there and say, hey, look, I've got 4 matches in 11 days or 5 in 15. I need to be able to call up Nick Firmino and Luke Brennan or Efren Morales and Noah Cobb and not worry about, hey, how many times have I already called them up this year? Player availability, I think, is where we need to address it because of all of these competitions. That's why you've built these rosters, and that's why you have all of these different designations and under contracts. That's why you've got homegrowns, U22s, rosters, international players, all this kind of stuff. But the key is they all need to be available for you, especially in schedule compression, especially late in the year. And if I think that Luke Brennan or Nick Firmino is ready to continue to play like we saw, when Firmino scored, you've got to have the access to these players. You can't just sit there and it's like, I want to call up Firmino and Brennan. I want to call up Efren Morales and Noah Cobb. I want to be able to do that freely during the season and not worry about, okay, how many times? 3 times? I can't call that person up anymore. You're restricting your own team's success if you're Major League Soccer with that kind of a rule. You want to have as good a product out there every single time as humanly possible, especially with a new TV deal and a new TV partner. I think that whole idea of emergency call-ups, it has to be retooled to where you can have players readily available. That to me is one of the things that you've got to look at here. I mean, Chelsea's got 34, 35 folks under contract. They've got to loan some out, or 42 or whatever it was in the old days. They can recall and do whatever. MLS teams have 30, but you're restricted. That doesn't do you any good. That's the key for me when it comes to these kinds of things. So that's now that we've solved the roster problems off of a tweet that happened yesterday. Like I said, Luke Winstel hopefully will be in a safe place, and we can catch up with him here in hour number 2 about Australia, about the World Cup, about all those other kinds of things. So we'll have that. But, since it is past the halfway point of the show, I guess I need to do something like this and cut a promo. Let me see if I can figure out if I've got it right. I guess I do. Catch up with our friends at Eliminize. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on our social media channels, on Twitch, on Facebook, and on Twitter. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's Eliminize service. They deodorize enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. Eliminize service has created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pet cigarettes and food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process. Makes it easy to work with said realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment we like that these days. Offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. Different than Febreze or our favorite masking agents that we have either under the sink or above us in the cupboard, because when we reach under the sink or above us in the cupboard to get out said masking agent, you spray it in the air. There's a reason they call it a masking agent, because all you're doing is masking the odor. You're not attacking the problem all the way down to the molecule like our friends at Eliminize Service do. Pricing very, very easy. One of two ways, either by the cubic foot or parts per million, to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. For information on our friends at Eliminize Service, frequently asked questions or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's the website, and this is where I grab my pen. Website's eliminize.com, but do us a favor, after the .com, go /Atlanta so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from, so they can help you with your issues. Full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta, eliminize.com/Atlanta. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, Eliminize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH for your Tuesday thoughts. See, that's the thing. It's like there's no gradual fade with this. It's like you hit a certain level and then it just slams shut. So like I said, hopefully Jarrett Smith will be joining us here in hour number 2. Luke Winstel joining us in a safe environment for conversation in hour number 2 as well. And so let's see. This morning we have fixed the Major League Soccer roster issues. We've gotten rid of Garber Bucks. We've set a cap with both the floor and a ceiling. AEK match suspension. Okay. Uh-oh. See, now you're getting me all kind of now you're see Kefsy's all Kefsy's got me. See, when Kefsy comes in and is like, what the hell is this? AEK match suspension. Whoa, okay. Yeah. All right, so here's the deal, and I'm going to do this because it is a breaking news situation. So, yeah, we'll do this. All right. This is from a bunch of folks. This happened 5 hours ago, and from our friends at Eurofoot, the Champions League qualification match today between AEK and Dinamo Zagreb has been suspended. An AEK supporter has passed away after being stabbed. 96 arrests and at least 8 people injured overnight, according to Euronews. So you've got, on the eve of AEK Athens and Dinamo Zagreb, a 29-year-old AEK fan lost his life after being stabbed to death by visiting Zagreb fans, resulting in the suspension of the fixture. So that is, so that's from our friends at Euronews. And we'll see if there's any more that can be gleaned from this. Euronews, they're referring to it as a night of mayhem. Violent clashes between groups. This is Euronews with Agence France Presse. Greek supporter of AEK stabbed to death overnight from Monday to Tuesday. Brawls broke out in the suburbs of the Greek capital between AEK fans and supporters of Dinamo Zagreb. Violent clashes left at least 8 people injured, 3 Greeks and 5 Croats. Trouble came ahead of the first leg of the Champions League, due to take place on Tuesday evening at the AEK Stadium in Nea Philadelphia, an Athens suburb. Large groups of supporters attacked one another near the stadium, throwing stun grenades, stones, incendiary devices, and other objects. Some had bats. Greek police. Serious incidents took place outside the Nea Philadelphia Stadium. A young Greek man was stabbed to death. 22-year-old victim was hospitalized before succumbing to his injuries overnight. Among the injured was also a minor who was hit in the head with a rock, said the public television channel ERT, still in hospital as of Tuesday afternoon. 96 arrests by Greek officers throughout the night until the early hours of the morning. Violence began about an hour and a half after the visiting side from Croatia left the pitch under police escort. An investigation has been opened, and those arrested are to be heard by the prosecutor on Tuesday, according to the Greek news agency ANA. Around 100 hooligans from the Croat club were present in the Greek capital, it added. Greece's main left-wing opposition party strongly criticized the lack of police control over their presence in the city. Management at Dinamo Zagreb said in a statement on Tuesday they strongly condemned the clashes. They noted UEFA had made the decision that the 2 matches will be played without visiting club supporters, and urged more Dinamo fans not to travel to Greece. So that's your background there. So let me, I'm going to do this search and see if I could spell it, first and foremost. Greek City Times, obviously, you have morning. Red Cross hospital doctors fought hard to keep him alive at the spot where the young man was murdered, from our friends at Greek City Times. That's their wording. Supporters of the Athens club left scarves and candles that formed the initial letter of his name. The young man's name is Michael. Despite the ban on movement of fans decided by UEFA, hooligans from Dinamo Zagreb arrived from Zagreb to the Greek capital. Huge, and this is from Greek City Times, by the way. Huge questions are raised by the fact that the group of Croatian hooligans crossed the entire national road and reached Attica without the cars being stopped at any point by the police forces who knew about the ban on organized movement of fans. Many reports on social media claim that together with the Dinamo Zagreb hooligans, there were also Panathinaikos fans who attacked the fans of the yellow and black who were at the OPAP arena. Let's see. Situation did not take long to get out of hand, as around 200 people trampling anyone there in the square of Hagia Sophia OPAP arena. Hooligans attempted to enter the stadium, whose doors were closed. Terrified people closed their shops around the OPAP arena to protect themselves from the wild fights. And there is video out there on YouTube. Dinamo fans and their PAO friends quickly arrived outside the stadium around 11 p.m., attacked AEK fans. Fierce fight broke out with Molotov cocktails, bats, and other objects. Once again, there's a lot of video out. Meantime, the training of the 2 teams had finished at the OPAP, and the Dinamo delegation went to the hotel with a police escort. At the same time, AEK officials locked the stadium, but many fans ended up in the cafes in the area. So, I'm trying to see if there is anything else. And so the Bad Blue Boys are the Dinamo Zagreb Ultras, the most successful and supported club in Croatia, and officially founded on the 17th of March in 1986. Yeah, so the Bad Blue Boys are an ultra group who support Dinamo Zagreb. And I'm trying to see, 24 February 22, the Bad Blue Boys received worldwide recognition and praise for being one of the first sets of supporters to publicly show their support for Ukraine among the ongoing Russian aggression. BBB displayed several Ukraine flags along with a banner that read "Support to the people of Ukraine." Image was subsequently shared on Instagram. Stories for the football section of Bleacher Report. 2018, Croat police raided BBB headquarters in Zagreb, seized a bunch of weapons, clubs, pyrotechnics, balaclavas, firearms, ammunition. Quarters also decorated with graffiti dedicated to Hitler and Ante Pavlich. Share close relations with Panathinaikos, Dinamo Kyiv, Dinamo Tbilisi, and AS Roma. So the Bad Blue Boys are the Ultras group mainly associated with Dinamo Zagreb. How many of the Bad Blue Boys were in Athens? We do not know. But you are instantly drawn to the Bad Blue Boys if you're discussing things about Dinamo Zagreb. So, so obviously the match is postponed. And obviously we'll keep an eye on what's going on there as opposed to everything else that's going on. 7 officers removed from posts in Katamarini, according to KFC, was going to say as much a failure of security as any acts of individuals. So obviously we'll keep an eye on AEK and Dinamo Zagreb because that was supposed to be later today when it came to Champions League qualifying. And that was supposed to be a 2:45 start. And probably would have had the chance to see that match going on as a part of qualification. It's one of 7 matches today in qualification for Champions League. Copenhagen, Sparta Prague, Rakov in Poland against Aris of Cyprus, PSV, Eindhoven against Sturm Graz. AEK was supposed to play Zagreb at home. Our friends from KI Klaksvik in the Faroe Islands were facing Molde at home on the Faroe Islands. Molde's a big favorite in that one. 3 o'clock, Braga and TSC out of Serbia, Ljubljana out of Slovenia, and Galatasaray out of Turkey are your 3 o'clocks. So 7 matches today in Champions League were supposed to happen. AEK and Dinamo Zagreb at 2:45 obviously no longer is going to, and we'll keep an eye on this one. Hutch wants to know who carries stun grenades around with them, and frankly, it's somebody who wants to feel a lot better about themselves, and so they feel like they have to do that in a position of power. And so we'll see what I'm not going to use the word fallout, but we'll see what the repercussions are after this morning. Disturbing stuff out of Europe as we were getting ready for Champions League qualifications. A couple of other we'll get into news and notes in and around. Since we are in Europe, we'll go ahead and do gossip, rumor, and innuendo and things left unsaid. And we'll let you know what else is going on in the world for the next 40 minutes. Neymar's told PSG he wants to leave this summer, chasing a return to Barcelona. My guess is that there's going to be probably 3 teams in the Premier League that want to chase after him. Chelsea, for me, is on line 1. No, it doesn't make any sense. And yes, they are already in discussions with Neymar's reps, according to our friends at RMC Sport. Bayern Munich considering making a 4th bid for Harry Kane after their latest offer of £86 million was rejected. Harry Kane wants everything done by this weekend, or he's just going to put it on the shelf. He called that. He's going to call time on it. That's from our friends at the Telegraph. Bernardo Silva, close to extending his contract at Manchester City, prepared to wait a few more days for Barcelona to make a move. Arsenal closing in on David Raya. Less than a year left on his Brentford deal. Liverpool will have to pay Southampton the full £50 million asking price if they want Romeo Lavia. Liverpool have not followed up in their initial interest on Fluminense's midfielder Andre as they continue negotiations with Southampton in a deal for Lavia. West Ham agreed on the £32 million deal for Ajax's midfielder Edson Alvarez. Manchester United have rejected a £30 million bid from West Ham for Scott McTominay. We mentioned yesterday David Moyes could leave if they start the season badly or he becomes the target of supporter dissatisfaction. Well, that's already happening. Happened last year. Didn't matter if you won a title or not. Harry Maguire could stay with Manchester United for another season because he will only join a club playing in the Champions League. Good luck on that. Might be sitting a lot. Manchester United hoping to push through the sales of Donny van de Beek and Fred this week. That's from the four-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Arsenal have turned down an offer from Monaco for Valérien Balogun. Arsenal's looking for in the neighborhood of £50 million. Jorginho could leave Arsenal for Fenerbahce, despite only joining from Chelsea for $12 million in January. Chelsea set to move for Tyler Adams, intent on signing Moises Caicedo before the start of the season. Chelsea and Juve have scheduled a new round of talks to discuss the swap deal involving Romelu Lukaku and Dusan Vlahovic. That's from Fabrizio Romano. That is a first-tier source. Spurs could offer defender Joe Rodon and Jed Spence as part of negotiations for Brennan Johnson. It's from the four-letter paper. Brennan Johnson's carrying that same £50 million price tag. And, of course, it makes you wonder who Nottingham Forest is going to get to score goals for them up top this year. They got Matt Turner to stop them, but who are they going to get to score them? Iniesta set to sign for UAE Pro League side Emirates Club. That's according to our friend Fabrizio Romano as well. So you've got, that's the early rounds of news. Sky is saying that a stay for Harry Kane is increasingly likely. Spurs are ready to listen for Jed Spence and Tanguy Ndombele. Spence signed for Middlesbrough last summer in a deal worth up to $20 million. Spent the second half of the season at Rennes on loan. Ndombele's had loans with Lyon and Napoli. Signed from Lyon for a club record £63 million in 2019. Failed to make an impact with Spurs. Kyle Walker seriously considering signing a new contract offer at Manchester City. Deal's been on the table for a couple of weeks. Bayern Munich had a strong interest in signing him since early this summer. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain due to land in Istanbul earlier this evening, local time, to continue his talks with Besiktas. Galatasaray among the clubs interested in Yaphet Tanganga, whose future at Spurs is again uncertain this summer. Spurs are bringing in new center back, signing two already with the possibility of a third before the deadline, so Tanganga faces even greater competition for game time, according to our friends at Sky. Came close to joining AC Milan last year, but then Antonio Conte wanted him to stay and fight for a place in the team, which he did. But Tanganga only made 7 appearances on all comps last year. Premier League clubs have expressed tentative interest, while Inter Milan also have him on their list. Nothing advanced by the way of an exit yet. Spurs also listening for offers. We mentioned Joe Rodon. They're also listening for Davinson Sanchez. Even before the season starts, Wolves might be changing their manager. Wolves are in talks with Julen Lopetegui with regard to mutually terminating his contract. Gary O'Neill, the former Bournemouth boss, candidate Wolves are keen to speak to about taking over for Lopetegui, who joined in November 22 when Wolves were at the bottom of the Prem. Lopetegui has criticized the club's lack of spending during the summer window, and according to our friends at Sky, has cut a frustrated figure over the last few weeks as he looks to build on their 13th place finish from last season. Gary O'Neill certainly knows what it's like to try to navigate something without a whole lot of capital being invested, as he did with Bournemouth late last year, the run that they had late in the season to stay afloat in the Premier League. But they decided not to keep him, meaning Bournemouth. Lopetegui has repeatedly voiced unhappiness at the lack of investment this summer amid financial fair play constraints, the report claims at The Guardian. Wolves are concerned his frustrations could damage dressing room morale. Romeo Lavia not in the squad for Southampton's EFL Cup match tonight, playing Gillingham at Priestfield. making a number of changes for their opening championship win over Sheffield Wednesday. Lavia was on the bench. Liverpool's latest bid was in the neighborhood of $45 million, but it was rejected a couple days ago. Brighton technical director David Weir has told Sky that the club have not had an acceptable offer for Moises Caicedo. Bad news if you're a Chelsea fan. Chelsea forward Christopher Nkunku is out for an extended period after suffering a knee injury. Looks like it's going to be in the neighborhood of a month, is what they're saying. He's already undergone surgery. Pochettino's now left with Nicholas Jackson and Armando Broja as his striker options. Rule the forward out for an extended period, according to the statement from Chelsea. Undergone an operation, now begin a rehab program with the club's medical department. Spurs have signed Mickey Van de Ven from Wolfsburg for $43 million. 40 million euro up front potential, rising for another 10 million inclusive of Adams. Signed a 6-year deal, longest contract the Spurs have handed out since Ndombele of 2019. We've talked about how successful that was. Celtic have made inquiries for 2 center backs as they look to replace Carl Starlfeld. Understood inquiries have been made for Elfsborg's Gustav Lagerbielke and Volendam's Javier Mbuyamba. Starfelt close to a move away from Celtic with Celta de Vigo in advanced talks. He apparently wants to be in a place where his significant other, who also, I believe, plays the sport, he wants to be closer to her with that relationship. Matt Turner has completed his Nottingham Forest medical. Formal announcement of the move from Arsenal is expected today. Premier League opener is at Arsenal on Saturday. Ben Jacobs releases a Lionesses statement on Lauren James' red card, automatic 1-game ban, but it could be more. So in theory, the Lionesses could have to figure out how to do things without Lauren James for the remainder of the tournament. Lauren's really sorry for, and this is about as proactive as it gets, by the way. Lauren's really sorry for her actions, which led to the red card, and is full of remorse. It is wholly out of character for her. You heard as much from Serena Wiegman and anybody else willing to listen after the match was over. We'll be supporting Lauren throughout, and we'll be putting forward representation on her behalf. We fully respect FIFA's disciplinary process. Will not be making any further comment until after any decision has been made. So basically, what they're saying is, we're going to be proactive in this. We're going to sit here and say that she is an amazing person, an amazing player, and please, please, please only make it the one match. Please, please, please only make it the one match. That's all we want. Bam updating us on Europa League qualifying. Astana and Ludogorets, they are goalless, and they are in the now mid-30s when it comes to their activity in the first half. Brighton CEO Paul Barber adding on Moises Caicedo, we're realistic to know there's interest in him. For now, he's a Brighton player under contract. We'll see what happens as the window goes on. So that's a non-committal committal. That about is as non-committal a committal as humanly possible. Bam put a link to the game in the Discord. Excellent. See, now Bam is thinking about everybody else. The man is thinking about everybody else. As he well should. Give, making sure that everybody else who wants to watch that game as a true degenerate could certainly do that. FC Cincinnati signed Alvis Powell to a contract extension this morning through the 25 season. But there is a real fear. There is a real fear that England will be without Lauren James for the remainder of the tournament. Because if it's a 3-match ban, you're basically around the 16 round of 8, final 4. You know, you'd be back for a championship game if you make it that far. Reckless. You see, and here's how Sky headlines that. Subheading: Lauren James apologizes. Okay. At just 21 years old, James established herself as the Lionesses' star of the tournament through the group stage to reach the finals in Australia and New Zealand. The reckless block on the back of Michelle Alozie saw her sent off in England's match against Nigeria. The reckless block. The reckless block on her back. Lauren James stomped on the back of Michelle Alozie. It wasn't a reckless block on the back, but like I said, that's how it's phrased from our friends at Sky. Waiting to discover whether the one-match ban will increase. She reached out to Alozie. Alozie said, all respect for Lauren James in her post. Ludogorets has apparently now scored in the 34th. So all respect for Lauren James from Michelle Alozie. Lauren James, all my love and respect to you. And this was on the X back and forth. Sorry for what happened also for our England fans. My teammates playing with and for you is my greatest honor. Promise to learn from my experience. Apologized in the dressing room. She goes public. And you had your team statement this morning. So that's where we are with Lauren James. Is everyone is anticipating that Lauren James is going to get a 1+. And so that's where that is. We mentioned Colombia's win over Jamaica this morning. Colombia manager Nelson Abadia. Quote, when we qualified for the World Cup, the first thing I said to my team is we are not here to just spend some time. No, we want to write history. We want to make history, and it's better to make history than to tell history, end quote. Last team standing from the Americas in the World Cup is Colombia. First time ever that Colombia has been the last team standing from the Americas at any men's or women's World Cup. So that's what you're staring at with Colombia. Fantastic work by them to be the last team standing. But yeah, the block in the back, it was a stomp. Everybody says it was a Beckham moment. It was a stomp. Trust me. Definitely a stomp. Not a block in the back. But hey, that's what you're staring at sometimes when you're trying to write a story and you may not necessarily admit that your glasses are somewhat colored. The block in the back. No, it was a stomp. It was a stomp without question. Also wanted to bring this to the table this morning. Yeah, it was more of a Zidane moment. It was. I mean, it's a lot of folks were looking at the Beckham moment. Beckham, Zidane, what have you. And a larger, and we've got a lot of time to act, to think about what's going on. But a lot of folks are sitting there saying, what did Vlatko Andonovski do wrong? As we kind of steer into what's going on with the U.S. team. Let me give you your traffic for the week, by the way. You'll have later today, you'll have the beginning of your weekly programming coming up. You'll have your USL Championship, League One, MLS Next Pro, all those weekly programs. They'll come up a little later. And tomorrow, looks like Jen Hildreth will be on at 9:30. So nothing like trying to multitask at all of this. So tomorrow is going to be a stacked show. Jen Hildreth at 9:30. Dylan Butler hopefully joining us at 10. And then Lloyd Hours, the technical director from the Marshall Islands. The last team on the last country on the planet to have a national football program, the Marshall Islands. It's a project that we've been kind of keeping an eye on for a while. And Coach Hours went over to the Marshall Islands, and he's on his way back. And if it all works out tomorrow, then it will be Lloyd getting a hot spot in the Honolulu airport He will be in Honolulu as he's making his way back from the Marshall Islands to England. He spent 9 days in the Marshall Islands and trying to get those seeds germinated to start to grow the game. And because there's video that's out on the Marshall Islands feeds, by the way. And they've started playing futsal. You started to have youth clinics. You started to have donations pouring in. We'll catch up with Coach Hours, hopefully from the Honolulu airport tomorrow at 10:30. So Jen Hildreth at 9:30, Dylan Butler at 10, Lloyd Hours at 10:30 to discuss what's going on in the Marshall Islands. And obviously we'll have the World Cup to talk about the 9 o'clock segment. Maybe we'll get Lucas Panzica to talk Leagues Cup with what's going on with Nashville tonight. We'll get into that. And Bart Keeler has made it back to this side of the Pacific Ocean. Reached out yesterday, and it appears that Bart is with us now, at least on this side of the planet, gradually making his way back to home base. And Bart should be joining us on Thursday to see what's going on and to get an update on his trip, get an update on everything that's on his mind. We'll revisit what's going on with Vlatko in the U.S. on Thursday as we get you ready for the rounds as they continue to grow less and less when it comes to folks in the World Cup. So we'll catch up with Bart on Thursday, Nico on Thursday, and then Friday we'll get you ready for the weekend. Don't forget, tomorrow night, 7:30 on the network, it is Crown Legacy, and it is Atlanta United 2. Last night, for those that have followed along with what we've seen from Crown Legacy, Patrick Ajimong scored the first of the 2 goals in the turnaround. Houston had the 1-0 lead. Ajimong on a great ball over the top, great control by Ajimong, and he puts it through into the net to tie things at 1 before the awful movement from Houston to create the second goal. So Charlotte wins 2-1. Ajimong has been a part of the growth for Crown Legacy. So Crown Legacy tomorrow night, be interesting to see what their lineup is, considering that Ajimong played in Leagues Cup last night. Does Ajimong stay with the first team through this Leagues Cup run? Or does he end up drifting back and playing time with Crown Legacy tomorrow night? Tomorrow night, 7:30, 7:15 pregame. And it will be, it looked like yesterday, according to Abby, it might be back at the Fraction. We don't quite know yet with what's going on. If it's back at the Fraction, it's back at the Fraction. If it's someplace else, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Training Ground has been the home for the last 2. Obviously, when we know, we'll let you know. And we'll see how the transferring of the seating has been going at Fifth Third the next time that we're there. But when we know, we'll let you know. Tomorrow night, 7:30, a little after 7:30, kick Atlanta United 2 and Crown Legacy. And we'll have the pregame starting at 7:15. So that is your traffic. So tomorrow, very, very busy stuff. And we're looking forward to doing all of that for the remainder of the week. Very questionable goalkeeping for Houston. Goalie is a total wild card. You know, you're not wrong. I mean, last night, that was it was intriguing to say the very least. You know, Corey Baird gets the goal in the 10th minute, and you're thinking that Houston is just swimming and they're rolling. Yeah, and that's the thing about, Steve Clark. Steve Clark is a longtime veteran of Major League Soccer. And a couple of seasons back, I think this is his second season in Houston. I know a lot of folks are used to seeing him in Portland over the 3 seasons previous, where he was the main starter in Portland. But Steve Clark has been known to drive people crazy in net. But yeah, he's the starting keeper for Houston. And here's his career path. And by the way, Steve Clark is only in his 10th season in Major League Soccer. 2014, 15, 16 with the Crew. Was on the bench at DC in 17, the bench at Portland in 18, and the bench in D.C. Then he started in Portland 19, 20, and 21, and he's been the starter. Signed a deal to move to Houston, and that's where Steve is now. He's the second year of being and David, he has been known to kind of go walkabout, and he does have wanderlust, and he does drive folks crazy when it comes to what we've seen from Steve Clark. 37, and that's the thing that I didn't realize, is that Steve Clark was 37 years old. And I mean, he was at Hunefus BK in what country was this? Norway. Okay. So he started his professional career in 2010 in Norway out of college. So he was in Norway 10, 11, 12, and 13 with Hunefus BK. Then he comes to be a part of Major League Soccer in 2014. And then that's when it all started. 16 and 17, he goes to the Superliga and plays at AC Horsens after his time in Major League Soccer. He goes back to playing overseas, and then he comes back. So there's something about the Norwegian play that had Steve Clark just absolutely attracted to it. So, yeah, 10, 11, 12, and 13 when his career started out of college. Comes back, plays in Open Cup with Crew. He's available for them in the competitions. But, yeah, Steve Clark definitely has some things. Tom says, yeah, you don't really want keeper much over 35. Oh, wait. Tom, you and I both know that keepers age differently. They age differently. Casey Keller was a keeper deep into his career. Keepers age differently than position players. Steve Clark, when you look at Steve Clark, it is Steve Clark has a tendency to wander from outside the 6 and sometimes outside the 18. That's not a driver's license thing. That's just part of his DNA. Sometimes he wants to be a sweeper keeper. But the thing is, kind of like, who was it the other day? Kind of like the other keepers that we see that are sweeper keepers that have, zero qualm about being 30, 35 yards away from net. Steve Clark will wander. Steve Clark will wander, and once again, with great risk comes great reward. So no real issues or concerns when it comes to, I look at reaction, I look at defense, I look at DNA, those kinds of things. And 35, I don't really lock into ages per se. Yeah, and you got beat by his own back pass. You look at the McHale goal. David, I was talking about Steve Clark specifically, and then McHale passes it backwards. What is it when playing out of the back goes wrong or whatever it is? Out of the turning on the own goal. Yeah. But yeah, when was the last time David mentions this? Out of the turning on the own goal. When was the last time that anybody had that happen to them? Out of a tournament on an own goal. Out of the tournament on an own goal. I cannot remember the last time something like that happened. Cannot remember the last time something like that happened. Italy. Okay. Capsy, that's a +1. Like I said, better memory than I've got. Other news, Charlotte's going to host Mexico versus Ghana on October 14th. Oh, and Women's World Cup. Yes, you're right. And Doug Robertson also mentions Atlanta United's going to have a closed-door scrimmage against St. Louis at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground on Saturday. So a couple of other pieces of news there. I'm hoping I'm hoping we can catch up with Luke Wenzel quickly before the end of the show this morning. We can discuss what he's been staring at with the Matildas and stuff. Oh yeah, we've got to discuss what's going on elsewhere. What you can watch on the tube, because since Bam has done the Lord's work and has posted the link to for any and all degenerates in the Discord. And if you're not in the Discord, ask someone else who is a part of the Twitch pitch who is in the Discord about getting into the Discord, and you can have conversations. They're having their own Picks of the Week competition. And that's dangerous when they have their own Picks of the Week competition. But I will give the Soccer for Good OG a boatload of credit, because she's turning into more draws with her selections. And then she actually referenced me, because for those of you plus ones and A-listers that have been with us from the beginning and have listened to Soccer Over There, where we did Picks of the Week, you'll notice that a lot of the times I pick draws. And then Soccer for Good OG decided this week for Picks of the Week that she was going to pick a lot of draws. And once again, I appreciate the initiative of all of our friends in the Discord, that they want to have their own competition and carrying on the tradition of the Soccer Over There elements, and making sure that everything was going to be the way that it was supposed to be, and that everything that is normal about soccer down here in the network is going to continue, even if we don't. Even if Nick comes on the morning show and we have a Soccer Over There segments, we don't have the nighttime show on Mondays, that you guys took the initiative to continue to have Picks of the Week. I tip my hat to you all. I absolutely tip my hat to you all. Other papers, stuff that we forgot to get into this morning. Sandaberga is in talks with Burnley over a potential move. Sheffield United's a midfielder, 25-year-old, has a year left on his deal. The Mirror at the Premier League is not going to move Arsenal's match with Forest on Saturday, despite the game clashing with the Women's World Cup quarterfinal. Thank you, Bam. Bam has posted in the Twitch pitch the Discord link. Manchester United are eyeing Tyler Adams as an alternative to Sofiane Amrabat as they continue to seek more summer signings. Say that 10 times fast. Eric Ten Hag's going to try and offload 6 more players. 6. Before the summer transfer window opens. Dean Henderson, Fred, Eric Bailly, Donny van de Beek, Scott McTominay, and Harry Maguire all could leave. Mentioned the Times, and we mentioned Harry Kane and the 4th offer. PSG ready to sell Neymar, and another sign of the end of the Galacticos era. Ready to get rid of him. 31-year-old's told the French club he wants to leave. Understood PSG would accept an offer of 60 to 70 million for the player. All right. Now that we've got a number, I'm going to ask you. If, just as an example, like I said, I think that LAFC would want Mbappe more than they would want Neymar. But if 60 to 70 million pounds was an offer on the table for Neymar, should Major League Soccer go after him and assign him to, Vancouver? Just in general. 60 to 70 million, if that's the number for the player, should Major League Soccer as an entity drop that money and assign him to someplace as like a designed designated player? Well, Bam. Do you want Neymar? Do you really want Neymar? Would you want Neymar? Would you want Neymar and his balky ankles? I mean, the first time that somebody goes in and challenges him, he's going to run the risk of being on the sidelines. And then there's that whole idea of, maybe, I want to go to Rio. I want to go to Carnival. Oh, my ankle hurts. You going to let him do that? Kessie, Orlando deserves Neymar. And Bam, of course, being the fan of LAFC that he is, Bam just wants 5 more stars on the crest so they can have more than the folks in Carson. So I see where his priorities are. I see where you're lying here. Not a surprise. Orlando deserves Neymar, Kefsey says. But if it's 60 or 70, would you want to drop that kind of money? I know Chelsea will. Chelsea would be more than happy to have Neymar there as part of the 72 players that they have under contract. But is it worth it? Mbappe, sure. Maybe if you get the 1-year splash and you figure out how to do something domestically, you sit there and you try to figure out, okay, how can we make him fit? All those kinds of things. You'd make him fit. You'd find a way to make Mbappe fit if you're LAFC. John Thornton's done it before. He could have Gareth Bale talk to Kylian Mbappe about it. LAG, not so much. Neymar, I'm not sold. Bam's all fired up now about getting more stars than Carson on the crest. Since 96, back in my day, back in the early days of Major League Soccer, I look at Neymar and I'm like, no. You can't really protect him. He's going to want to go on his vacations. I don't think the investment's there. Mbappe, sure. Neymar, not so much. But you know that someone will chase after him, and then he'll end up going to the Saudi Pro League. He'll figure that out. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has compared his latest fitness program to undergoing a factory reset, convinced they can recapture the form that made him in England regular. Chelsea could break through the £1 billion barrier in player purchases by the end of this month. The signing of Axel Disasi from Monaco took the spend since Bowley Clearlake bought the club to £768.7 million. And then Chelsea followed the Disasi signing, £25 million signing of Robert Sanchez from Brighton. They want 4 more players for Pochettino before the window closes. 4 more players. Why the hell not? Manchester Evening News, Tom Heaton expected to remain a Manchester United player following productive talks with Eric Ten Hag. I can't do Neymar. I just can't. Cannot do Neymar. Cannot. Mbappe, absolutely. Others, no. Not at all. No. Tom is not holding his breath on Dominic Calvert-Lewin. What you need to watch today. Apparently there's a lot. Trust me, there's a lot. And apparently, looks like our friends at Soccer America are only doing things on a every other day basis. Being in Espanol, they've got the Copa Libertadores, Fluminense, Argentinos, Juniors Internacional, and River Plate. That's at 6 and 8. And if you want to watch those and be a true degenerate and watch the Copa Libertadores, you can get Fanatis, ftz.co/soccer down here. And that will get you all the BN channels, which will get you South America, it will get you Africa, it'll get you AFCON, it'll get you Middle East, North Africa, all of that stuff. You will get for the fans, you will get Gold TV, you can get your Ecuadorian Primera and all the other South American and second-tier European leagues from Gold TV. You can get TIC and watch everything going on in Argentina. And Jason got me hooked, so I blame him. So you've got to be in Espanol Copa Libertadores doubleheader tonight. Fox Deportes, the Joan Gamper Trophy, Barcelona and Spurs at 2 o'clock. Telemundo Universo were your simulcasters for a World Cup. We'll get into the juice boxes for World Cup tomorrow coming up in a sec. Season Pass, all 4 matches are on Season Pass for Leagues Cup tonight. Nashville, Club America, Minnesota United, Toluca, Tigres, Monterrey, LAFC, RSL. CONCACAF Go has the U15 Boys Championship of USA and Haiti. That is at 2 o'clock. Also on the plus in Carabao Cup today, Wrexham and Wigan is at 3. Set your VCRs accordingly. Hull City and Doncaster's at 2:40. Fox Soccer Plus has the Central American Cup. Hankook Verdes and Alajuelense, our friends from the Costa Rican League. Yep, fntz.co/soccer down here. Bam. Give that a shot. Yeah, see if you can get that, if that would work. Yeah, Fanatis is the name of the full company, but the abbreviation that they've given us to help out the network here and to help them out, fntz.co/soccer down here. Paramount Plus, third qualifying round of UEFA Champions League. Rakov Sostova and Aris is at 2. Copenhagen Sparta Prague at 2. PSV and Sturm Graz at 2:30. And Klaksvik and Molde is at 2:45. For the visuals alone of that stadium in the Faroe Islands, if that is in fact where this is, and it's not neutral site or it's not at Molde, the visuals on that stadium in the Faroe Islands would be worth the intro alone. Paramount also has the Brasileiro at 7 o'clock tonight, Coritiba and Santos. Tomorrow morning, your activity in the Women's World Cup is apparently, it's an off day. I thought it wasn't an off day tomorrow, but we'll see. Hang on. All my days are running together. World is what we're staring at. So, yeah, they got an off day tomorrow. Okay, so everybody's in the barn. France winning 4-0 today. Off day tomorrow. Maybe that's why everybody's able to talk to us tomorrow. Jen Hildreth at 9:30, Dylan Butler at 10, Lloyd Hours from the Marshall Islands is going to be joining us at 10:30. So, yeah, Spain and the Netherlands is the 10th, which is, if today's the 8th, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, doubleheader. So, Thursday night, Spain and the Netherlands. Friday morning, Japan and Sweden. Saturday morning early, Australia, France, England, and Colombia is the late game. So those are your final, that's your 8 that are left. And we await Lauren James's punishment past the one match. So she will not be around for the Colombia match. What will England do as a reboot? What will they try to do to work their way around it? That's the big question. And that is the larger topic. Let's tour the other papers before we go. And before we go and get out of here once again, full show tomorrow. You'll get your episodics later today. You'll start to get your episodics later today. USL Championship, USL League One, and MLS Next Pro. Tottenham landed Mickey Van de Ven. Ange Postecoglou's closing in on a £12 million forward. The Alejo Veliz transaction, Rosario Central, the 19-year-old. We've talked about him. Interesting stuff out of Burnley, and Christopher Nkunku's ruled out until December after knee surgery. Apparently, there is a behind-the-scenes documentary, Mission to Burnley. It's on Sky. I don't know if we'll be able to watch it anywhere here in the States, and if we can, it might be a decent watch. 4-part documentary about their return, pain of relegation, return to the Premier League. And they talked to Vincent Kompany after he, took over for Sean Dyche. And they go into the ownership group and what it was like for Morgan Edwards, ALK Capital's chief financial officer. Where, remember, when we talked about this when it happened, that when Burnley was bought, it was a leveraged buyout, December 2020. Very little of their own money, borrowing a lot, and it goes into that. And Alan Pace, one of the big quotes apparently in this 4-part series, explaining the highs and lows. Night, Bam, we'll catch up with you tomorrow. And thank you for all your help with the Discord and everything this morning. Alan Pace explains the highs and lows of being the owner of a football club in the most basic terms. To have, quote, to have people come up to the director's box on their way out and almost charge at the director's box and yell and scream and tell you to F off and go die, I don't think people are ready for that, really ready for that. So that's what Alan Pace talked about with Burnley after they got relegated from the Premier League. Let go of Sean Dyche, brought in Vincent Kompany, had the leveraged buyout, made their way in, and they made their way back. So 4-part series, I think it'll be an interesting watch. If there's ever a way we can watch it here in the States involving Burnley and their rush back. Jason Burt yesterday, Premier League on alert as Neymar joins the PSG exodus. Yeah, that's one way to phrase it. So on that note, that's another day. And we will we'll be back at it again tomorrow. Once again, full show tomorrow. All the stuff to talk about in the news of the morning. Jen Hildreth at 9:30, Dylan Butler at 10, Lloyd Hours at 10:30. You here as a part of that discussion as well. Crown Legacy and Atlanta United 2 Wednesday night, 7:30 kicks, 7:15 pregame. When we know where the match is going to be, we'll let you know. Thursday, Bart Keeler returns to this side of the planet, Nico Moreno at 10:30. And then Friday, get you ready for the weekend. It's a busy morning on a bunch of different fronts. Disturbing breaking news about teams that have had enough and they're tired about how their national federation's treating them. And we'll see how it continues to evolve from there. And teams trying to mitigate damage when it comes to the remainder of the tournament in the Women's World Cup. And Leagues Cup, too. And Kefsi and Tom are having discussions about Neil Maupay and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And they will continue to do so as we go. Once again, thanks to all of you guys for hanging out with us here to give us your Tuesday thoughts. We've shelved the Afghan women's national team conversation for later in the week. We will get back to it, and we'll see what's going on there with all of that. And BAM will be able to keep us up to date on that as well, with Melbourne being a home base for the Afghan women's national team. So for all of us here at SDH, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. Mucha plata, y'all. Play it safe. And since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning, 9:05.